let's talk about your career. Obviously, you retire at the 29 years of age, 7 years in the season, and there have only been 2 seasons in which someone has caught more than 18 touchdowns. Jerry Rice in 1987 had 22. Randy Moss broke that record in 2007 with 23. If you look at what you've done up until the point you retired, nobody had that many catches to start a career like you have. Your last season, and what people don't understand about this, in your last 6 games, only one person in history has had that many touchdowns over a 6-game stretch. Your last 6 games of your career, you had 13 touchdowns. Only Jerry, record-breaking season, he had 14.
And he did that during the strike, so his is pretty impressive.
He did that during the strike-shortened season. And your last game, you had 9 catches, $133, and 3 touchdowns. And when you see the Hall of Fame, and I know it's something that you don't talk about and you don't politic for, but do you believe, looking at your resume and looking at the guys that you competed against, the Michael Irvins, the Jerry Rice, the Chris Carters, the Herman
Andre Reed,
Andre Rice, and Tim Brown, and 4 or 5 of those guys are in the Hall. Do you believe your resume for 7 years since Sterling Sharpe should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Because it's you, I'm going to answer the question. Normally, I wouldn't answer the question because I'm like, I can only get in based on what I did. But because it's you, I'm going to answer the question. And I would say, if the Hall of Fame is for what you did, everybody always talks about with me what I didn't do. And they go, if he would have played longer. And I always say, well, if you collect rocks, and if I collect rocks for 3 years and you collect rocks for 7 years, there's a good chance you're going to have more rocks than me.
Correct.
And so when I look at the Hall of Fame, in my 7 years, I led a receiving category, either catches, yards, or touchdowns. I did that a lot. And I did that in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I did not do that with Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I got some catches in there for Bud Keys and Mike Norseth and Mike Tomczak and Blair Keel and Anthony Dilweg. I got some catches from those guys. But I just think that everybody is in love with what they see. And I'm a firm believer in Randy Moss and Terrell Owens, and I'm a firm believer in Hines Ward. I'm a firm believer in Ike Bruce. I got no problem with nobody who's in, but I'm like, if you're saying I needed to play longer, then you're punishing me because those guys played 12, 13, 14 years. So if it took them 12, 13, 14 years to do what I did in 7, then are they Hall of Famers? And I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just making an argument. So I don't think about it. Don't talk about it. I was like, if me getting in the Hall of Fame would make me feel better than I feel right now because my brother's going in the Hall of Fame, I don't want to go. Because that weekend was a great weekend, being there with me, you, Libby. That was a great weekend. And so I don't think about the Hall of Fame. But the argument is, well, they always talk about what I didn't do because not many people saw what I did. And with the coverage that we got in Green Bay, it's not like the coverage that you have in professional sports right now. But I'll take my 7 years, and you take any receiver's best 7 years. Just take their best 7 years. I like the way my numbers stack up. It's not my fault that I only played 7 years. Sorry.
That Hall of Fame, for me, getting into the Hall of Fame, and you were there every step of the way because you were there in 2009 when I didn't get in.
That was probably the lowest I'd ever seen you to.
Yeah.
That was worse than I'm going to the Army, and that was worse than I didn't get drafted on day one.
Mm-hmm.
That was the worst because I think you allowed yourself to let your guard down and say, I had done what others, because I think at the time it was you, Ozzie, and John Mackey. Hey, who's the better? John Mackey.
K2 Kellen, Big Kellen.
I'm Kellen. So it was you, Ozzie, John Mackey, because they're like John Mackey. So Kellen, he can go stand up and play wide receiver. Ozzie, he's not a dominant blocker, but he blocked for a dude that ran for 2,000 yards, so he knows what he's doing. John Mackey's just a crafty route runner. So I think you allowed yourself to look at your numbers and say, definitely. And just icing on the cake, I've been to 3 Super Bowls. So you can say, yeah, you won 2 Super Bowls, but you played with John Elway and Terrell Davis. Hey, look, I went to Baltimore, and, we didn't have John Elway, Trent Dilfer, and we won a Super Bowl.
Right.
And so when you didn't get selected that first year, I think that was probably the lowest I'd ever seen.
Yeah, I was disappointed because I'm saying to myself, if you didn't like my numbers this year, it's not like I can add to it next year. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like them next year, it's not like I can add to them on the third year. And so for me, I thought it was about winning. Well, no tight end at the time had won more games than I had won. Mm-hmm. Very few tight ends had the career that I had with the 8 Pro Bowls.
True.
With the All Pro selections, the 50 catch seasons, the 1,000-yard seasons. Nobody had ever done that. First tight end with 700 catches, 800 catches, with 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 yards. And I'm like, wait a minute. So what do you need? So I thought it was about winning. And then it was like, come to find out, winning only matters if they want you if they want you to get in. Then I don't believe you should come up with a reason to keep somebody out.
Well, if you're looking at what someone didn't do, then okay, then fine. I'm never going to get in, and I'm going to be fine with that. But if you're looking for a way to keep someone out of the Hall of Fame, because it's other than where is Jimmy Hoffa and Amelia Earhart, the most difficult question to ask is, what's the criteria for getting into the Hall of Fame, the NFL Hall of Fame? Because it's the most secretive and no one knows. And that's the thing is you go, I'm just looking at what I was able to, and I'm sorry, but I didn't draft the guys I got to play with. I didn't set the schedule up. I didn't go. This is what I did. And I'm like, so if Shannon Sharpe's going to get in the Hall of Fame because he played in 3 Super Bowls, you're penalizing me for not having John Elway and Terrell Davis on the team. So I just look at it like I say, you know what? I like my numbers, and my numbers. And it's funny playing travel golf now. I get a chance to be around a lot of Hall of Famers. I have a lot of friends who don't like being around those guys. They don't feel comfortable. And I feel comfortable. The Marcus Allens and the Jerome Bettises of the world, the Eric Dickersons, have always treated me wonderfully. And they'll make me feel like, hey, I'm not a Hall of Famer. And so I'm like, I think that's because I'm happy about the way I played. I played as hard as I could for as long as I could. And if I wasn't a Hall of Famer 8 years ago, am I a Hall of Famer today? Am I a Hall of Famer at 92? And I the other argument I say is, if you put people in an arena like the Hall of Fame, if you do it every year, you're going to have some people that shouldn't be in. You're going to have some people that's not going to get in. And so I'm like, I like my numbers. And I said, you just take the top 7 wide receivers, pick any 7, and you take their best 7 years, and you stack their 7 years up against my only 7, and let's see where we are.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very compelling point. But for me, man, you know what? When I think about it, it's the one thing that I really, and it's a great honor. I mean, I think I was 267 that got into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They're well over 300. I think they're in the 350s now. But for me, it's something that I really don't think of. And I get, when Skip refers to me as a Hall of Famer, I kind of get uneasy because I'm like, yeah, it's me. I get the gold jacket, but so many other people played a part in me getting this gold jacket. And so for me, I get uncomfortable. Like Super Bowls, that's the whole team, because everybody on the team got a ring.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's something. And then when I went to Pro Bowl, when my first time I was an All-Pro, I got all the offensive linemen Rolexes. And that very few, that's something running backs normally do. Quarterbacks normally do. But I was just like so appreciative that I wanted to thank them, because I really thought they blocked a little harder when they knew the ball was going to come my way. So I kind of get uneasy, and that's how I am. There are guys like, I don't like get around someone who's like, oh, I'm in the Hall of Fame, you're not. or you're this and that. That's not how I look at it, because I know. And I know when we played you guys, I know what Wade Phillips was saying. And I know what the DBs were saying. And I know what go talk to Deion Sanders and Rod Woodson and Niels Williams and Darrell Green, guys that are in the Hall of Fame at the cornerback position, and ask them. I know what they tell me about Sterling Sharpe. So all that other stuff is fine and good. And the people that vote, they vote. But I know what the guys that played said about my brother. You know what to do. Hit the subscribe button to become an official member of Club Shay Shay, where we always do something for two something.